Today we're going to be talking about the study of psychology. So what is psychology? Why study it? And then how do they actually study psychology? So we're going to get started just with a series of questions just to pique your interest about psychology. So don't feel like you have to write these down. This is just to give you an idea of some things that we're going to be talking about this year. So have you ever wondered how you could develop a better memory? If ESP really exists? Why some people become serial killers? Why you get nervous? How different men and women really are? Why you sleep and why you dream? Is hypnosis real? Why people get sick right before exam week? Why identical twins aren't identical when it comes to their personalities? And the last question, how the salesperson managed to talk you into more than you wanted to buy. So by the end of the year, you will be able to answer all of these questions. This is just to give you a brief idea of what we're talking about. Again, don't feel like you have to write this down, but reasons to study psychology. The goal of the class is that you would get a better understanding of the people around you, so why they do what they do. Another goal of the class is that you would get a better understanding of yourself, so why you react the way that you do. And then also to improve your quality of life. So how can you improve your memory? How can you alleviate daily stress? That type of thing. Those are goals of the class. Next, this is where you'll start taking your notes. What is psychology? Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Now make sure you know this definition. You'd be surprised how many people will miss this on the final exam. So the study of behavior and mental processes. Now, what is the difference between a behavior and a mental process? So behavior is something that can be observed on the outside. So an outward action or reaction, maybe physical aggression, so punching someone, an angry outburst, that type of thing. So talking, facial expressions, movements, all those are examples of outward things that can be observed. A mental process is an internal activity of our mind. So thinking, feeling, remembering, all those go on inside. So psychology, in order to study behavior and mental processes, we will study animals. We'll look at some experiments done on animals and then also, of course, experiments on humans. So just a little bit of background on the psychology, the history of psychology. The father of psychology is Wilhelm Wundt, and he is known as the father of psychology because he had the first psych lab, and that was in Germany in 1879. So he was the first to try to collect scientific data in the study of psychology. Now you might be wondering why psychology is science. I'm enrolled in its social studies. What do you mean it's a science? At Pine Lake and in North Carolina, it's considered social studies just because we don't actually get to perform experiments. But um, psychology is considered a science because scientists rely on the scientific method. Now, you've seen the scientific method in science class. The scientific method is a way to gather information and answer questions so that errors and biases are minimized. So this is going to give us an objective way to observe and analyze and a better way to share and retest findings so that it's consistent. So the steps in the scientific method, of course, they're going to formulate questions about behaviors, about mental processes, and then make a hypothesis. So this is an educated guess about a phenomenon. Next, they're going to conduct an experiment. Then from the experiment, they're going to analyze their results. And then based on the results, they're going to draw conclusions. and that could ultimately lead to theories. So an explanation, an overarching explanation of that phenomenon, and that it could be used in explaining other behaviors or mental processes. So here's a little model of the scientific process. So we see the question, the research, the hypothesis, testing with an experiment, analyzing results and drawing conclusions. So if the hypothesis is true, your experiment confirmed it, then you can report the results. And if your hypothesis was false or only partially true, then you can go back, revise the hypothesis, and try the experiment again. So what I would like for you to do now is to come up with your own question, hypothesis, and experiment. Now, you don't have to perform this, but I want to get you in that psychological mindset. So, I would like for you to, if possible, develop a question that would be related to the field of psychology, formulate a hypothesis, so that's an educated guess about or answer to your question, and then just jot down how you would conduct the experiment. So what would you do in order to test your hypothesis? So just again to reiterate why psychology is a science. So psychology is going to help us understand reasons why we do things and figure out what actually causes behavior, and also why we think certain things and what causes those. So just to kind of get you thinking about possible topics that you could develop an experiment on, we're going to be looking at the biological basis of behavior. So things related to the nervous system, your hormones, your brain. We're going to look at development, so from birth to death, consciousness, so waking, sleeping, that type of thing. Sensation and perception, so sensation, those are your five senses. Memory, thinking, language, motivation, emotion, personality, stress, psych disorders, social psychology, which is the study of how we interact. So when you're thinking of a question, try to draw from those are just ideas to get you to stimulate your thinking. Those are topics we're going to study this year. But try to come up with a psychological question, hypothesis, and a way to conduct your experiment. And we'll talk about those tomorrow in class.